Whether you believe in the existence of heaven and hell or not, those who have had near-death experiences often report encountering a blinding, radiant light beckoning them to the afterlife. However, some describe encountering a dark abyss of suffering and evil. Those who have experienced near-death and returned have shared their visions, which resemble hell. A common theme is the feeling of being pulled into darkness, as if descending into an abyss. Some report seeing flames, smelling sulfur, and witnessing grotesquely mutilated bodies. Others even describe encountering bizarre, malevolent entities, terrifying visions of hell recalled from their near-death experiences. 1. The horrifying volcano in Matthew Botsford's eyes. One famous story is that of Matthew Botsford. In March 1992, Matthew Botsford in Georgia, USA, was having dinner with a few colleagues at a restaurant. As he stepped outside, he suddenly heard gunshots. 3 young, intoxicated men, angry at being denied entry to the restaurant, opened fire on the crowd, and he was shot in the head. He immediately lost consciousness and fell into a deep coma. He was quickly rushed to the hospital, where doctors fought to save his life, though his chances of survival were slim. Remarkably, he pulled through. During 27 days of continuous coma, he saw terrifying visions he believed to be hell. He saw himself shackled and hanging upside down over a large crater resembling a volcano, with a stench of burning sulfur in the air. He noticed many creatures rushing into the pit, where countless 4-legged beings wandered below. Smoke was everywhere, and around him were the screams and torments of millions of lonely souls. The most horrifying aspect was the overwhelming sense of loneliness. Occasionally, a group of demons and strange creatures would come to him, tearing flesh from his body. When the pain became unbearable, the torn flesh would regenerate, only for the demons to resume their torment in a never-ending cycle. During this horrific ordeal, he suddenly saw a giant hand reaching through the wall, unshackling him and taking him away. Before waking from the coma, the last thing he heard was, "It's not your time yet." Though it sounds like a fictional story, this is the hell he saw and vividly remembers in detail. 2. The burning gates of hell for Rajiv Party. Some people recall their near-death experiences of seeing a brilliant light known as the gates of heaven. But hell has its own terrifying and horrifying welcome. Many who have experienced near-death reveal that hell's temperature gradually increases, with unbearable heat causing the souls to feel as if they are being burned and suffering immense pain. A Reddit user wrote about his near-death experience after an overdose. He couldn't remember whether he died in his sleep or how, but he remembered descending into hell. He saw demons as giant fire ants walking on lava, which was strange since he had never feared ants, despite falling into a fire ant nest as a child. Another case is that of Indian-American Dr. Rajiv Party. He was the chief of anesthesiology at Bakersfield Heart Hospital in California. In his profession, he had heard many patients share their experiences of their souls leaving their bodies, but he didn't believe them until he had his own near-death experience. In 2008, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer and underwent multiple surgeries to remove the tumor, but his condition worsened. In 2010, 2 days before Christmas, he contracted an infection and was rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. During this surgery, his soul left his body and went to hell. In his book Dying to Wake Up, he wrote, "I can easily recall my entire near-death experience at the border of hell. I met my late father and saw some of my past lives. These explained many unresolved psychological issues in my life." He then saw a dark, gloomy scene, with black clouds, lightning, flashes of fire, and the appearance of demons with long horns. He also saw old patients and people he had been angry with. Seeing this terrifying scene at hell's border, he wondered why he was there and what he had done to end up at hell's gate. In a surge of despair and fear, as he was about to be dragged into hell, he prayed for a chance to atone for his mistakes. Then his father appeared and led him to a tunnel filled with sunlight that didn't blind him. After returning, Dr. Party believed he had a mission to share his experiences in hell and the lessons he learned. He left his medical career, sold all his assets, his luxurious house, and his valuable cars to live a peaceful life. He asserted that his current purpose is to convey these truths to others. 3. Howard Storm facing demons. The life and fate of Howard Storm, an absolute atheist, took a turn when he had to undergo surgery due to a perforated stomach. It was a difficult and risky surgery, but it led him on a journey through a near-death experience. After being rushed to the hospital, he woke up shocked to find that those around him didn't respond when he asked what was happening. He even tried to stop someone approaching him, but failed. It was then he realized he had left his body and was now a wandering soul in the hospital. At the end of the room, he saw shadowy figures standing by the door, beckoning him as if inviting him to join their group. Simultaneously, a shadowy figure pulled him out of the hospital room. He followed the shadows into a completely different world, enveloped in thick mist. When he looked back, the hospital room and his loved ones gradually faded from sight. The shadowy figures urged him deeper into the darkness. They suddenly became malevolent and began tearing at him. He felt as if he were entering hell. Storm fought and tried to defend himself against the demon's attacks. At this moment, he heard a voice in his head urging him to do something he had never done before: pray. In his torn and painful body, the atheist cried out to God. Instantly, a divine force came to his aid, and he was freed from the terrifying nightmare. Strangely, he recovered completely upon waking. 4. Angie Finnemore's frightening memories of loneliness. In January 1992, disillusioned and despairing with life, Angie attempted suicide by overdosing on sleeping pills. However, she didn't die, and instead embarked on an unprecedented journey. The first thing she remembered after losing consciousness was seeing her entire life flash before her like a slow-motion movie, from the end to the moment of her suicide. After seeing the end of her life, Angie recalled being engulfed by a thick darkness from which she could not escape. She heard voices around her saying, "We have to kill ourselves." She realized these words were being broadcast directly into her mind, and it felt very real. She could also communicate mentally with these voices, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't converse with any souls around her. She was then cast into a desolate, cold place, which she described as hell, a void filled with hopeless souls wandering and haunted by the pains of their past lives. They were in unbearable anguish and despair, tortured by demons. They seemed unable to communicate freely with each other, but Angie realized that this suffering was endless. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't talk to anyone around them. After feeling isolated and lost in the darkness, she found herself floating in space. Suddenly, she noticed a ray of light and heard a voice asking, "If given the chance, would you choose life or death?" She looked down at the tormented souls and felt a deep longing for life. At that moment, a powerful force pulled her out of the darkness. In an instant, she felt a strong movement around her. She suddenly awoke to find her soul had returned to her body. A near-death experience is a scientific term for what those who escape death see, hear, and believe is very real. Today, we know little about these experiences because they only occur when a person is near death. But many have survived and shared these experiences. What about you? Have any of you ever experienced this? Feel free to leave a comment below.